He raised his champagne glass in the middle of our daughter's graduation dinner and said calmly, shamelessly, "I've decided to start a new life without you." The restaurant fell silent. 50 guests, family, friends, colleagues all turned toward me, waiting for tears, for drama, for me to fall apart, but I didn't. I smiled, reached into my purse, and placed a sealed envelope beside his plate. "Congratulations," I said, "on your honesty." What he didn't know was that I had been waiting for this moment, planning for it. Preparing for the day my husband of 28 years would finally show his true colors, and I'd be ready to burn the whole illusion down, quietly and completely. My name is Lydia Hartwell. I'm 54 years old, and the envelope I gave him wasn't just a goodbye. It was the beginning of the end on my terms. Now let me ask you this. If your partner betrayed you, would you cry or calculate? Have you ever smiled through heartbreak, knowing justice was on its way? Let me know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more true revenge stories just like this one. Because sometimes silence isn't weakness, it's the calm before the storm. Stay until the end. This story doesn't just end in heartbreak, it ends in freedom. They always saw me as the stable one. The woman who remembered birthdays, sent thank you notes, kept the house running even when everything else was falling apart. I wore the title of wife, like a tailored suit, clean, classic, dependable. And for nearly 3 decades, I believed that was enough. I met Edward at 25. He was magnetic, quick with a joke, bold in conversation. He talked about building an empire. I talked about compound interest. Somehow we fit. We married 2 years later. I stepped away from a promotion at my firm to start a family. "It's just temporary," he said. But temporary became permanent. Sophie was born, and I found purpose in her. She had his charm, but my eyes. She asked smart questions by the time she could talk and read before kindergarten, while Edward jumped between ventures, tech startups, real estate, even a short-lived wine label. I built a quiet safety net, freelance consulting tax strategy, a separate account he never asked about. Most wives feared their husbands losing interest. I feared him losing focus, and he did often. But I kept the machine moving. I smiled at the right parties. I reassured Sophie that her dad was just in transition. Behind closed doors, silence grew. Not loud fights, just the absence of effort. We became roommates with rings. I told myself that marriage was about endurance, that love settled into routine, that my dreams could wait just a little longer. Until one morning, I reached for Edward's phone to silence an alarm and saw it. A message, just one line. "Can't wait for our new life to start. One more month. I love you." The name on the screen, Kelsey Monroe. She wasn't a stranger. She had once laughed in my kitchen, wineglass in hand. She had joined our holiday parties. She had called me for career advice. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I closed the phone, walked to the bathroom, and sat on the edge of the tub. For 20 minutes, I stared at the grout lines between the tiles and counted every breath. Then I stood up, walked downstairs, and made breakfast, because that's what women like me do. We breathe through betrayal, and we plan. I started reviewing our financials that night. Little things jumped out: unfamiliar transfers, luxury purchases labeled as business expenses. He wasn't even careful. I opened a file on my laptop, named it just in case. It would eventually grow to 72 pages, statements, screenshots, timelines. And then I remembered the prenup. He had insisted on it when we married. Back then I had family money and a solid career. He was ambitious but broke. I never fought him on it. I signed page 12, section D, outlined infidelity consequences. It was still valid. He didn't know that, or maybe he forgot, but I didn't. The 3 months leading up to Sophie's graduation were some of the longest of my life. Every dinner, every smile, every night I lay next to him in bed, I was collecting receipts. Waiting, I knew him well enough to guess his play. He'd wait until after the graduation. He wouldn't want to ruin the moment. He'd spin it like a midlife epiphany. What he didn't expect was that I'd already filed that morning while he shaved and hummed in the mirror. The paperwork had been logged with the court, and the envelope was already in my purse. He thought he was ending the story. He had no idea he was walking into the prologue of his own downfall. Sophie's graduation dinner was held at an upscale restaurant overlooking the river. Golden light poured through the tall windows, glinting off polished silverware. and champagne glasses. Laughter echoed as servers moved between tables. For one brief moment, it felt like everything I'd worked for had arrived. Our daughter was graduating with honors, surrounded by love and pride. Then Edward stood up. He tapped his glass with a spoon, cleared his throat, and said it. "I've decided to start a new life without you." No speech for Sophie, no words of fatherly pride, just a declaration cold and theatrical, crafted for maximum humiliation. Forks froze midair. Conversations died mid-sentence, and everyone turned to look at me. They waited for a scene, for screams, accusations, maybe even tears. Instead, I reached calmly into my handbag and pulled out a cream-colored envelope. I placed it gently beside Edward's wine glass. "What's this?" he asked, his voice cracking just slightly. "Something for you to read later," I replied, with a small, polite smile. Then I turned to Sophie, kissed her on the cheek, and whispered, "I'm so proud of you, this day is still yours," and I walked out. No dramatics, no storming off, just dignity. As I stepped into the warm Charleston evening, the restaurant doors slammed shut behind me, and I could finally breathe. The heat hit me like a wave, but I welcomed it. It was real, and unlike everything inside that building, it wasn't pretending. Then I heard it. The door swinging open again. "Lydia, what the hell is this?" His voice, shrill and panicked, shattered the air. I didn't stop walking, didn't look back, because inside that envelope was everything: the court filing, the financial breakdown, a printed copy of the prenup, with the relevant clause highlighted in red. But that was just the beginning. For years I'd handled our household finances. I knew where every dollar went. And 3 months ago, I started noticing subtle transfers. Small amounts routed to an account under his name only. It didn't take much to uncover the rest. Dinners in Savannah, a necklace from a boutique in Charleston, a beachfront property tour listed under his email. All tied to Kelsey Monroe. She wasn't just a fling. She was a future he'd been building using our money. And all the while, he told me to tighten spending. Said retirement would be tight, that Sophie might need to apply for more scholarships. The level of insult wasn't just betrayal, it was theft. But the mistake he made wasn't trusting I wouldn't find out. It was forgetting who I used to be, before the PTA meetings, before the catered parties, and the polite smiles. I was a finance strategist, and I still had teeth. I traced every transfer, tracked every dinner, archived every love note he sent Kelsey, thanks to his unsecured phone backups. He planned to leave after graduation. He even had his clothes packed in the back of our closet. But I'd already moved 3 steps ahead. I filed for divorce first, quietly with evidence and with full knowledge of the prenup. He never reread. He thought it was expired. It wasn't. It had no sunset clause. In fact, it specifically stated, "The infidelity clause remains active for the duration of the legal marriage, and through proceedings upon dissolution." His smug little plan, his dramatic public exit. It had just become the most expensive toast he'd ever raised. While he raised his glass to declare freedom, I had already started the countdown to his fall. And the best part, he thought the worst was over. He had no idea what was still coming. I didn't go back to the restaurant. I didn't answer Edward's calls. Didn't respond to the flurry of messages from guests who didn't know whose side to take yet. Instead, I drove home to our house, the one we bought together 15 years ago in Charleston's historic district. He had promised that house to Kelsey. He just forgot to tell me the driveway was quiet when I pulled in. The porch still had the flower baskets I watered every morning. Everything looked exactly the same, but nothing felt familiar. Inside, I took off my shoes and walked through the silence, past the wedding photo above the fireplace, past the bookshelf full of travel guides we never used upstairs. I opened our shared closet. Sure enough, his luggage was hidden behind the coats, 2 suitcases packed neatly. Ready for his grand exit, he really thought I'd be blindsided, as if I hadn't been watching it all unfold day by day, lie by lie. My phone lit up with notifications, friends asking what happened, some pretending they didn't know, others slipping into silence. One message stood out from Marilyn Edwards' sister. "I saw them together at Christmas. I asked him. He denied it. I should have told you." I typed back one line. "You just did, thank you." And then I texted Sophie. "I'm okay. This isn't your burden. Celebrate today. We'll talk tonight. I love you. She deserved that." I had protected her from the truth for months. waiting until after exams, after final papers, after she walked that stage in cap and gown. She'd be angry that I didn't tell her sooner, but someday she'd understand why. That evening, hours later, I heard the front door slam. He was home. "Lydia," he shouted. "Where are you?" I was sitting in the living room. Laptop open, reviewing documents with the calm of someone who already knows the outcome. He burst in, red-faced, sweating, clutching the envelope. "What is the meaning of this?" I closed the laptop, met his eyes. "You wanted to start a new life. I'm simply helping you pack," he scoffed. "You had no right." "I had every right," I said, voice steady, "just like you had the right to choose Kelsey." "We all make choices, Edward." His jaw tightened. "The prenup's expired," he said. "Everyone knows those things don't hold up after so many years." I smiled, but it didn't reach my eyes. Page 12. Section D. The infidelity clause is active for the life of the marriage. No expiration. You insisted on it, remember. He blinked. No response. "Did your lawyer not explain that?" "Oh, that's right. You didn't consult one." He went quiet, then softer, trying a new tactic. "We've been through so much 28 years. It can't just end like this." I studied him for a long moment. The man I had held through miscarriages. The man who brought me coffee when I worked late. The man who once drove through a storm just to bring me the book I left at work. When did he change, or had he always been this man, and I just didn't see it? Our history meant everything to me, I told him. "That's why your betrayal cut so deep. Then maybe we can fix this," he said, quickly. "Maybe we just need—" "This wasn't a mistake, Edward. This was planned, calculated. You funneled money out. You found property with her. You even scheduled your exit." His face darkened. "You're exaggerating." I reached for my phone, tapped the screen, played the recording. His voice crackled through the speaker. "After the graduation, I'll tell her it's over. A public setting is better. She won't make a scene." Kelsey's voice followed, "And she has no idea about the money." Edward again. "None. Lydia trusts me completely. That's her weakness." The room went still. "You recorded us. That's illegal." "Not in South Carolina," I replied. "One-party consent. And this is my house." He stood abruptly, pacing. "I need to make some calls." "Start with a lawyer," I said. "You'll be needing one." And I left him there, shaking, furious, and realizing for the first time that I was no longer the woman who would let him walk away without a price. That night I didn't stay at the house. I packed an overnight bag, grabbed my keys, and headed to the one place I knew I'd be safe. Marilyn's Edward's sister. She greeted me with a long, silent hug. At the door I just heard from Sophie. She said, "She's shaken, but proud of you." I stepped inside and exhaled the kind of breath that feels like it comes from years ago. The kind you didn't realize you were holding until it's gone. Wine was already open. We sat in her sunroom surrounded by books and old family photos, a space that felt more like home than the house I had just left. Marilyn finally asked, "What did you put in that envelope?" He looked like he'd seen a ghost. I told her everything. The divorce filing, the bank statements, the prenup. Her eyes widened. "I remember when he made you sign that thing. He was so proud of protecting his future empire." She smirked. "Now it's protecting you." We both laughed, but there was pain beneath it. Later that night, my phone rang. "Sophie, Mom," she said, voice tight. "I'm coming over. I need to see you." "You don't have to. I'm already in the car." 20 minutes later, she stepped through the door, still in her graduation dress. Makeup smudged eyes, red hands shaking. She collapsed into me like she used to when she was small. "Why didn't you tell me?" she whispered. "Because this was your moment," I said. "You worked so hard, I didn't want his choices to poison that." She pulled back, wiping tears. "Well, he took care of ruining it anyway." We moved to the living room and I told her everything. No more shielding her. The affair, the money, the plan he and Kelsey had crafted like some twisted escape route. "I knew something was off," Sophie said. "He's been different, distracted, always hiding his phone." She sat quietly for a while, absorbing. Then her voice turned sharp. "He told me last month we couldn't afford to help with my apartment deposit. Said things were tight. I picked up a second job to cover it." She looked up at me, furious now. He said we needed to cut back, and he was taking her to beachfront resorts. I nodded. Her fists clenched. She didn't cry again. That was the last time she called him Dad for a while. The next day, just after noon, the doorbell rang. Marilyn opened it. Her face dropped. Then she turned to me. It's him, and he brought her. I stood slowly. My spine was steel. Edward walked in first, trying to look composed. Kelsey followed, nervous eyes darting, clutching her purse, like it might shield her from the consequences. Lydia, we need to talk, Edward began. I stayed seated. The accounts are frozen, he continued. You've made your point, but this is vindictive. You think this is vindictive, I replied calmly. He blinked. We can be reasonable, he said. Sit down, talk like adults. Sophie stepped between us. Maybe you should have tried that before you humiliated her in front of everyone I love. Edward stared at her. Sophie, this doesn't involve, it involves me, she snapped. You blew up our family at my graduation dinner. You lied. You stole. You planned your exit like it was a business pitch. Kelsey tugged Edward's sleeve. Maybe we should go. No, he growled. We're not leaving until this is handled. Marilyn crossed her arms. Handled, she said. Handled like the Christmas lie. You told me you'd end it, that it was nothing. I believed you. Then I found out you were shopping for condos with her while still sleeping in your wife's bed. Kelsey turned to Edward, stunned. You lied to your sister. He didn't respond. Then I spoke. The judge will see us in 3 days. Until then, the freeze stays. You still have your private account, the one you've been stashing money into for a year. Kelsey's face whipped toward him. You have a private account, she stepped back. How much is in it? Silence. And just like that, cracks began forming between them. You promised we'd have the down payment by this week, she hissed. You told me everything was ready, I stood. Oh, and by the way, I turned to Edward. The lease application for your apartment, it was flagged for credit issues. Leasing office called our home number to verify. I answered. His mouth opened. Nothing came out. And I told them, I continued, that I was unaware of any intent to vacate our residence. They put the application on hold. So no, Kelsey. He didn't get you an apartment. He tried. He just failed. Silence. Then I looked at both of them. You have until tomorrow night to get your things out of the house, I said. After that, the locks change. Edward's face was flushed, but he said nothing. Kelsey turned toward the door first. He followed. But just before leaving, he looked back at me. This isn't over, Lydia. I met his gaze steady and unblinking. No, I said. It's only just begun. 3 days later, we met again. Not in a restaurant or living room, but in a quiet courtroom, tucked inside a brick municipal building. On a rainy Tuesday morning, Edward had finally hired a lawyer. Young, unprepared from a corporate firm that handled mergers and marketing contracts, not marriages that imploded in public. I arrived with Philip Anderson, my attorney of over 20 years. He knew every digit in our financial history, every clause in that prenup, and every tactic men like Edward tried to pull when they were losing control. The judge, a silver-haired woman with reading glasses perched halfway down her nose, flipped through our files with clinical efficiency. This document appears to be in order, she said. Lifting the prenup, do you contest its validity? Edward's lawyer cleared his throat. Your Honor, we believe the agreement has expired due to the length of the marriage. The judge didn't even look up Section 18. She read aloud, states, the duration is for the term of the marriage, plus any legal proceedings resulting from its dissolution. There is no expiration date. She turned a page. Furthermore, the evidence of systematic fund transfers appears to violate the financial disclosure requirement, outlined in Section 23. Edward shifted uncomfortably. His lawyer adjusted his tie. I am ruling to maintain the freeze on joint accounts pending full financial discovery, the judge concluded. The family home will remain in Mrs. Hartwell's possession for the duration of these proceedings, as stipulated in the infidelity clause. Edward's face flushed dark red. This is outrageous, he muttered, just loud enough to hear. The judge looked at him over her glasses. Mr. Hartwell, I suggest you review the agreement you insisted upon more carefully. This court reconvenes in 30 days, and just like that. The first official blow was delivered in the hallway afterward. Edward tried again. Lydia, please. This doesn't have to be ugly. I stopped walking. Turned to face him. You chose ugly the moment you decided to betray me. And our daughter, for a fantasy you financed with our future. You're going to ruin me, he said, the desperation starting to leak out. No, I replied. You did that to yourself. I'm just documenting it. I left him standing there alone, exactly where he had left me months ago. Word traveled quickly. Some friends called to express support. Others stayed silent, too aligned with appearances to speak truth. A few called not to offer comfort, but to mine for gossip. I gave them nothing. We're separating, these things happen, I said. Meanwhile, Edward's carefully curated image was crumbling. He had always been the golden husband at company parties, the man with the firm handshake and the charming anecdotes. But now the narrative was slipping from his grasp. The beachfront property, cancelled. The lease, blocked. The sports car returned to the dealership. 2 weeks after the hearing, Marilyn called me. You'll love this, she said. Kelsey's gone. Gone, moved out. Told a friend she didn't sign up to date a man with financial instability. Her words, I almost laughed. He built an entire life on lies, only to discover his mistress preferred illusions with better credit scores. Meanwhile, I was rebuilding on solid ground. I rented a small office downtown, hung a new sign, Hartwell Financial Transitions. My first clients were women I met at the gym, at church, at local coffee shops, women who whispered their stories like secrets. Afraid they were the only ones who'd been blindsided, I helped them sort paperwork, track assets, reclaim their independence. It felt powerful, not in a vengeful way. In a purposeful way, I was no longer the woman behind the man. I was the woman who saw it coming, caught it in writing, and turned the ashes into something better. Sophie visited often. One night over dinner, she said, "You're helping people survive the thing that tried to break you." I smiled. "I'm doing what I wish someone had done for me before it got this far." She reached for my hand. "I'm proud of you, Mom," and I knew she meant it. The next hearing was scheduled on what would have been our 29th anniversary. Poetic Edward arrived looking 10 years older. He'd lost weight. His business was faltering. Turns out I'd been the one managing more than just the home. Cassandra was gone. His social circle had shrunk. Even his lawyer looked tired of him. The judge upheld the prenup in full. I retained our home. My retirement, 70% of joint investments. Edward walked out with his personal belongings, a drained private account, and a reputation no bank wanted to co-sign. As we exited the courthouse, he caught up to me one last time. "I made a mistake," he said, eyes dull. "Is there any chance we could—" I didn't let him finish. "No," I said gently. "That door is closed, and for the first time in a long, long time." He nodded. "I understand." And I think he really did. 6 months later, I stood in the new office of my firm, Hartwell Financial Transitions. It was twice the size of the space I started, with sunlight streamed in through tall windows, casting long shadows across my desk, where a framed photo of Sophie in her cap and gown sat beside a ceramic mug that read, "Build what they tried to break." I had just hired 2 associates, smart, capable women, one of them fresh out of a messy divorce herself. We specialized in helping women navigate financial upheaval, divorce, widowhood, sudden independence. What started as a way to survive had become something bigger. Something needed. My phone buzzed. Sophie again. "Mom," she said, "guess who's back on dating apps?" I laughed. "Edward, yep. And apparently he's not doing great. Lives in a 1-bedroom across town. His business is now just him and a website that hasn't been updated in months." I paused. "I'm not surprised." Sophie hesitated. "Then you know what's ironic? What if he had just told the truth from the beginning? He might have walked away with half, maybe even kept a friendship." I looked out the window for a long moment. "Some people can't see past their ego," I said quietly. "Not until everything's gone." We ended the call and I returned to my work. Clients were waiting. Letters to draft. Accounts to review, women to remind that it wasn't weakness that brought them to me. It was strength, even if they didn't see it yet, because in helping them rebuild, I rebuilt myself. Not as someone's wife, not as someone's mother, but as someone whole. What did I learn from it all? That betrayal doesn't destroy you. Silence does. Waiting, denying, pretending. That's what rots you from the inside. But the moment you decide to stop playing along, the moment you say, "This ends with me," you don't just survive. You begin. What did you think of this story if you were in Lydia's shoes? Would you have smiled at the table? Would you have handed him the envelope? Let me know where you're listening from in the comments. And if you believe in Lydia's strength, vote number 1 if you think Edward got what he deserved. Vote number 7. Don't forget to subscribe to EN Reddit Story for more powerful true stories of revenge, resilience, and the quiet strength that changes everything.